What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. If you've never been here before, please check out many of the videos that I have. Subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up, hit the notification bell, and everybody else, welcome back. Welcome back. I told a story the other day about Kings County Psychiatric Center when I entered there after being arrested. For those of you that have never been here, I served 17 years in the New York State Department of Corrections. Unfortunately, for when I was 24 years old, I was in a fight with another 24-year-old man. And to make a long story short, I was responsible for taking that man's life, something I regret, not something that I'm proud of, but it is the reality of what happened to me because of many reasons, not excuses, but reasons. Addiction, abuse, neglect. I grew up with all of those things as a part of my life, and I am responsible for doing what I did. But that's another story, and a story that I've told. Um, so I did serve 17 years in the prison system, incarcerated. Several of those years were in mental institutions. So I told a story the other day when I went to Kings County Psychiatric Center in Brooklyn. Um, and now I'm going to tell you about what it was like when I was in Mid Hudson Psychiatric Center. This was a hospital for the criminally insane. I do have a video posted called Entering a Criminal Mental Institution. I would really appreciate it if you guys checked it out. It's a more extensive video about what the entire experience was like entering Mid Hudson. But I'm just going to tell you about what it was like when I went into my first room in Mid Hudson once they brought me in there. So Mid Hudson, I was sent there for an evaluation, a 1 year evaluation, which is called a 730-50 under penal law 730. I had a few 30-day evaluations where they found me unfit to proceed, which means that I wasn't able to assist my attorney in the rightly fashion, or I did not fully understand the charges against me. The psychiatrist felt that I should have a 1 year evaluation, and they sent me to Mid Hudson Psychiatric Center, which is in New Hampton, New York. Now, Mid Hudson houses two kinds of people, two kinds of prisoners. It is a male and female institution, but the males and the females are completely separated. They're on two different sides, locked away from one another. And Mid Hudson houses people who were found either guilty or not guilty by reasons of insanity, right? And so that's what's called a 330-20. When you're arrested, if you go for the insanity plea in the state of New York, it's called you're going for a 330-20 under penal law 330.20. And they have guilty by reasons of insanity and not guilty by reasons of insanity. And I believe it's about 2% of people that go for the insanity plea actually receive it. So it's very difficult to get. In the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, it was prevalent. Many people were given the insanity plea. But what they realized is that people were avoiding incarceration by going for the insanity plea. And so they made it much more difficult to get by changing laws. And so, anyway, Mid Hudson Psychiatric Center houses those who were found not guilty or guilty by reasons of insanity. And it also houses people who are going for the evaluation to see if they're sane or not sane. And I was sent there for an evaluation, a 1 year evaluation. I would end up spending several years there, a little more than several years there. I was there for a year, then sent back to Rikers Island for a while, then sent back to the hospital, back to Rikers Island. I would do that trip 2 or 3 times. But the first time that I get to Mid Hudson, and they put me in a room, it is a 4-man room. And the room was really nice. I mean, it was clean. The hospital was clean. It was nice. I didn't know what to expect. I went through the reception, went through all their questions. What medication you on? Why you here? This is why they sent you here. This is what we're gonna do here. And you'll be meeting with doctors and therapists. And then they sent me to my room. And I walk into this room. It was on the second floor, second or third floor. Can't remember. I think it was the second floor. And they take me to my room. I walk in there. It's a 4-man room. And there's 3 guys sitting on their beds. There's a bed in each corner, nice wooden furniture in the room, very clean. And all three guys are looking at me, and I can tell they're crazy right off the jump. I don't mean just mentally ill. These guys are nuts. If you've ever seen my favorite movie in the world, I know all the words to the movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1975, with Jack Nicholson, Danny DeVito, a lot of big actors in there. And that's my favorite movie of all time, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1975 is when the movie came out. The books came out in the 60s. But that's what these guys were like, just like Patience from that movie. These guys were insane. And all three of them, it happened to be three black guys in the room, and they were all looking at me with that mentally, they're just staring. And so I walk in there, put my stuff on my bed, and I say, "Hey guys, how you doing? What's happening?" And they go like this. No words. They're just shaking their head up and down. I said, "Oh, these guys are nuts." So I say to the first guy, "How you doing?" I says, "How long you been here?" He said, 7 years. I said, 7 years. I says, what'd you do? He said, rape. I says, okay, all right. I moved to the second guy. How long you been here? 11 years. I says, all right. What'd you do? He said, rape. Okay, great, wonderful. I go to the third guy. I'll never forget this guy. His name was Lyndon Giles. He was a black guy from England. He had a big afro. He was in his 40s, maybe mid 40s. And I say to him, what'd you do? And he said, I said, how long you been there? He goes, 14 years, just staring at me. I said, what'd you do? He said, rape. I didn't know what to say at this point. I got three rapists in the room with me. So sarcastically, I said, was she cute at least? He said, it was my mother. I said, all right. Okay. I says, you mind if I ask you a few questions? Can I ask you a few questions? And he goes, I said, well, I got to ask you. I says, Lyndon, I says, why would you rape your mother? And he goes, she liked it. I used to do it every day. I said, if she liked it and you did it every day, then why'd she have you arrested for it? And he said, she didn't want it this day. I said, holy shit. I turn around, walk out of the room, and I tell what they call TAs, which are like the restrainers there, the nurses' assistants, the guys, the white coats that walk around with the white coats. I tell this guy, I says, I'm not living in that room. He said, what's the matter? I said, you got me in the room with three rapists. This guy raped his mother, for Christ's sake. I'm not living in that room with these guys. And he said, listen, there's a large percent of the population is here for sex charges. A lot of them get found insane. You just have to get, used to it. I says, I'm not locking in that room with him. I'm telling you, I'm not locking in the room with a guy that raped his own mother. It's not happening, man. I says, I'm going to end up hurting this guy. That's what's going to happen. So he says, all right, listen. He goes, I have one other room. He says, that's available right now. He goes, but it's a 12-man room. He says, it's an observation room for people that are on suicide watch. He said, but if you don't want to be in the room with that guy, I'll put you in the 12-man room. So I said, all right, put me in the 12-man room, So I move into the 12-man room, which is crazy. This big observation room. The whole room has glass windows, plexiglass windows, so they could see inside all the time. And the guy next to me is a guy named Manny. And Manny kills a bunch of people in his own family. It was like 5, 6, 7 people. I don't even remember. I'll tell you his whole story later. But this guy killed like 5, 6, 7 people, his own family. He went from room to room shooting them all. He said I might as well tell you a little story right now. He said Manny told me that his father was sexually abusing him, and he told his mother, and his mother didn't believe him or didn't want to do anything about it, and so he couldn't take it anymore, and he decided to shoot them all while they were sleeping. That's his story. I'm not saying that's a true story because let me tell you what happened, right? But Manny was nuts. All he used to do is smoke cigarettes, drink coffee. You know how the mentally ill are. Smoke cigarettes, drink coffee. You got a cigarette? You got a cigarette? Coffee. Can I have a cup of coffee? This is what I heard for freaking years from these people. Cigarette, coffee. Can I have a cigarette? Walking around medicated up. But this is what happened with Manny. I'm sleeping in this 12-man room. Manny's in the room with me. And I wasn't asleep. I was wide awake. I couldn't fall asleep this night. And all of a sudden, I feel something. I open my eyes, and Manny's sitting on the corner of my bed. This guy that killed 6, 7 people, whatever. He killed his mother, his father, his sister, one of his brothers. I don't know who else, right? And he's sitting on the corner of my bed when I open my eyes. I like Manny, too, a lot. Nice. I like him, you know. So, what can I tell you? You know, and I says, Manny, what are you doing? So he goes, did you see that? Did you see that? I said, did I see what? He goes, they just came in here and raped me. I said, who came in here and raped you, Manny? Relax. I got to calm him down. He's bugging out. I'm like, yo, Manny, relax, man. Chill out. Relax. He's like, they just came in here and they raped me. So he starts getting me a little nervous because he's getting crazy. I said, yo, Manny, calm down. I said, nobody came in here. I'm wide awake laying in bed. Nobody came in this room. So he starts freaking out, man. And I calm him down. I get him to go back to his bed. But nobody came in the room and raped him. So Manny killed his whole family because he thinks people are raping him, or Manny got raped by someone in his family and it screwed him up for life. Or he's delusional and it never happened and he just thinks people raped him. I don't know what his story was, but Manny was out of control. Manny did. A lot of people ask me what was one of the most or the most disturbing thing that I ever saw during my 17 years incarcerated, in prison or in the hospital. And there were a few things that were pretty disturbing. I saw one guy set on fire in his cell as he was locked in his cell. The guy threw gasoline on him. Where did he get gasoline? In prison, he worked for the lawns and grounds mowing the lawn. And when the officer wasn't looking, he turned the lawnmower over and he poured a little gasoline into a vitamin bottle. He was able to sneak it back into the prison and he threw the gasoline on a guy and set him on fire in his cell. And the guy burned to death in his cell. And it was only about 3 cells away from me. Well, it was very close. And that was one thing that was insane. That guy burned to death. He burned alive in his cell. You know, that was one of the most disturbing things I seen. But what I saw Manny do may take the cake for one of the most upsetting and disturbing things that I ever saw in prison. We used to be able to walk, or we didn't walk. We used to get escorted to the chow hall to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was in a different building than where we lived. So they would walk us in a line to the mess hall building. We would go eat, and then they would walk us back. And when they walked us back, if it was a nice day out, we were allowed to sit outside. They would let guys smoke cigarettes out in the grass. Sometimes they'd stay out there for 10 minutes. Sometimes they let the guy stay out there for an hour, depending on what time of day it was, how much time they had. But they would let us hang out in this like field, you know? And so we're sitting out there, and the guys are lounging out in the grass. It's the middle of the afternoon, a summer day. And Manny's not sitting too far away from me, 20, 30, 40 feet away, whatever it is. He's sitting in the grass. And I'm watching him start to get undressed. But he's sitting in the grass. You're allowed to take your shirt off. I see him take his shirt off. Then I see him kick his sneakers off. And then I'm watching him pull his pants off. And I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing, man? What's Manny doing? This guy's nuts. And then he pulls his underwear off and his socks. None of the workers, there's only 2, 3 workers out there with us. They're under a pavilion. They haven't noticed it, that Manny is sitting down in the grass completely naked. And I'm getting a laugh at it. I'm like, this crazy bastard, what's the matter with this dude? And all of a sudden he stands up. And when he stands up, the officers, the TAs notice him. And they're like, hey, Manny. And Manny takes off running in a sprint. He's flying in a sprint. And he runs at full speed directly into a roll of razor wire that is on the fence. There's rolls of razor wire, like barbed wire, but this is razor wire. And there's rolls of it on the fence. And he ran directly into the razor wire at top speed, naked. and he was hanging. It reminded me of an image of Jesus Christ on the cross. The razor blades had pierced all of his skin. They were through his arms, through his neck, through his rib cage, his legs, and he was suspended in midair because he jumped into the razor wire. And he was suspended in midair, just hanging there with all the blood dripping. And that was one of the most disturbing things that I ever saw. That reminded me, I knew where I was, but that reminded me at that moment that I was with the criminally insane. And they took Manny, they took us all out of the yard, obviously rushed Manny to the hospital. And Manny did survive, and I would see Manny again. Um, it was really, really sad and heartbreaking to watch that. It was something that it is 27 years later, whatever it may be, and that image, I can see it like it was yesterday. It was to see a human being hanging like that from razor wire was crazy. But there's so many stories I can tell you about Mid Hudson Psychiatric Center. I'll give you some more if you want. You let me know. But please check out the video that I have entering a criminal mental institution. That is about Mid Hudson, where I give them more. I tell this story there, but I tell a lot of stories about Mid Hudson and what it was like to be in that place, what it was like to be in 5-point restraints, like straight jackets, which I was in dozens of times. I was locked in padded rooms. I had needles of medication forced inside of me every day. I protected Bruce Grodman. I protected a lot of the people who were really ill there from being abused. I didn't let anyone be abused by the staff or by any of the patients who were trying to abuse the real mentally ill. I didn't go for that, you know. And you'll hear the story about the bird there if you watch Entering a Criminal Mental Institution. Check out that video. You'll get a kick at the story about the little bird that I had a dealing with. And I'm gonna wrap this up for now, guys. And I'll give you another story soon about what it was like to live that life. All right. Have a good night, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.